I found my wife's obituary online, but she's sitting right next to me. I am chronically online. I Google lots of things and people when I'm bored. I've Googled my own name before, along with friends, acquaintances, conspiracy theories, and random internet sundries. But last night was the first time I'd Googled my wife's name, and I found something I'd never forget. The first hit was an obituary. Of course, I assumed it was someone with the same name as her. Her first name is Emily, and her last name's pretty common. Not going to share it here because I don't want to be doxxed. But I clicked it anyway, just out of curiosity. My heart fell through the floor when I saw a photo of my wife on the website. Blonde, highlighted hair, dark eyes, and the dates matched up too, 1986 to 20th 12. According to this obituary, she'd died when she was 26. I met her when she was 27. There's no way. I thought this must just be someone who looks like her, with her name and her birth year. But I knew it was too many coincidences to be wrong. When I read the actual obituary, it only cemented things for me. It mentioned her love of horses, her volunteer work at a soup kitchen through her church, and her work as a biologist postdoc. So many details matched up, there was no way it could be a coincidence. What you looking at? I jumped as my wife came in from the kitchen and sat down next to me. On instinct, I slammed the laptop shut. Nothing, I said. Then, realizing how suspicious I looked, I added, I was looking at birthday gifts for you. For a second, her face froze, and I was worried she wouldn't buy my lie. But then she smiled, that warm smile I loved, crinkling her eyes at the corners. "Ah, that's so sweet," she said, coming to sit next to me. I swallowed. Yeah. She cuddled up next to me, but I felt completely on edge. The warmth of her skin no longer felt warm and inviting. In fact, a chill ran down my spine. After a few minutes, I extricated myself from her embrace. I don't feel good, I lied. I'm going to lie down. Oh, okay, she said, pouting. Before she could say anything more, I ran upstairs. As soon as I got on the bed, I brought up the obituary again. I stared at the grainy image of her face. It was definitely her, that warm smile, those mysterious dark eyes. There was no way it could be anyone else. I scrolled through some of the other results, and I realized some of those too were related to her death. There was a Facebook memorial page, friends posting on it, names I didn't recognize, mourning her loss more than 10 years ago. The university she worked at had put out a statement with their condolences as well. But then I found something that made my heart stop. A news article, nestled at the bottom of the search results page. Emily hadn't just died. She'd been murdered. My jaw hung open as I read the news article. Phrases popped out at me: no signs of forced entry, partially dismembered, and killer still at large. The news article didn't have a photo of Emily, though, so maybe this was a different Emily. It had to be. It couldn't be my Emily, who was sitting on the couch watching TV downstairs. A sound jolted me out of my thoughts. The door to the bedroom creaking open. Emily stood in the doorway, oddly still. The hall light was off, shrouding her face in shadow. "Emily?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I came up to check on you," she said in a soft, cool voice. "Thanks," I said, quickly turning off my phone and slipping it behind me. "I'm feeling a lot better now. I'm fine." "I'm glad to hear that," she said, her voice going lower. I tried to keep my cool as she climbed into bed with me. I lay there, stiff and cold, as she wrapped her arms around me. "I love you, baby," she whispered as she cuddled with me under the covers. "I love you too." So that's where I am now. I'm writing this from my phone as Emily sleeps next to me. I don't know if I'm safe here. I don't know who or what I'm dealing with. All kinds of crazy scenarios have been floating through my mind. Did Emily have an identical twin that died and she took over the twin's identity? Is she some horrible creature from folk tales who killed Emily and took on her appearance? The more minutes that tick by, the wilder my theories get. None of them make sense. There's only one thing I'm sure of. whoever or whatever I'm sleeping next to isn't the real Emily. I had to spend 3 nights in a hospital where 7 patients died mysteriously. Now I know what killed them. As a fan of the paranormal and true crime cases, I was very excited when I came across an article about multiple strange deaths in my small town hospital. I was much less so when, a few days later, I had to be hospitalized there for food poisoning. The affair had broken out in the press because apparently the hospital management had tried to hide the deaths on the pretext that they were accidental. After the 7th death in less than 2 months, the information finally leaked out, probably by a doctor or nurse who thought it was time to warn the press, and the police for that matter, before any more deaths occurred. The circumstances of the death were troubling. All the articles reported the same facts. They had all died of a heart attack during the night. In the morning, someone had discovered their bodies while making a routine rounds. All those who discovered the dead were traumatized. Apparently, the victims all had expressions frozen in agonizing fear. Their eyes were still wide open, as were their mouths, which were twisted in an expression of infinite pain. When the situation was revealed to the public, the hospital said they had already launched an internal investigation, but according to staff testimonies, nothing concrete had been done, and they had tried, above all, to protect their own ass. No culprits or even suspects had been found. The day after these articles were published, my mother took me to hospital after I had been vomiting without a break all night. The welcome was warm, almost too warm. It was as if the entire staff had been instructed to do whatever it took to reassure the patients and the press and give the hospital the best possible image. Once I'd settled into my hospital bed and taken some medication, a doctor came to confirm the diagnosis of food poisoning to my mother and me, and told us I'd have to stay in hospital for at least 3 days. When he told me this, my hair stood on end. I thought I'd just have to stay the afternoon under observation with a prescription for medication to be taken over the next few days in the safety of my room in my home, and instead, I found myself having to spend, or rather survive, 3 nights in this hospital where someone or something had been executing patients indiscriminately for over 2 months. When my mother saw my eyes widen, she asked me worriedly, "Are you all right, sweetie?" No, well, yes, it's just that. 3 days, is that really necessary? If you don't want to hurt yourself by passing out alone in the bathroom, yes, the doctor replied with a smile. Why are you so worried? My mother asked. It's just that with these stories of murders in the hospital, for a moment the doctor's mask fell away before he resumed his benevolent smile. Don't worry, it's just a series of unfortunate accidents. The press has really exaggerated the facts, I assure you, he replied awkwardly. I sensed that even he didn't believe what he was saying and that the reality was perhaps even worse than what had been revealed. And anyway, don't worry, a nurse will be making rounds every hour, every night to make sure that, well, everything's okay. The nurse to his right, who had been silent until then and had simply kept a polite smile on her face during the discussion, finally intervened. Don't worry, I'll do the rounds myself every night. You're safe here. She appeared calm and self-assured. It wasn't much, but as I listened to her words, the weight in my stomach lightened. During the exchange, my mother remained frowning, clearly not understanding what we were talking about. Finally, the doctor took her aside outside my room, probably to explain the situation and reassure her at the same time. I could see her anxious face and her right hand caressing her neck as she glanced at me through the small window in the door. Finally, she nodded and came back to me, telling me that everything would be all right and that we didn't really have a choice anyway, considering my condition. I apprehended the first night as one apprehends the end of one's life, with the anxiety of the unknown. I could see the sun setting through the window. I was still a little weak, but I'd been able to stay awake and use my phone for a few hours before it started to get dark and read increasingly supernatural explanations of the deaths in the hospital. Some said it was haunted by a malevolent entity that took advantage of patients' weakness to suck out what little vital energy they had left, leaving only an empty shell. As I scrolled in panic over the increasingly frightening comments, the same nurse I'd met with, the doctor, and who would be doing the rounds, Eva, came to see me. I needed to take my medication and sleep to regain my strength. No offense, but there haven't been any deaths among the nurses so far, so I can understand that it doesn't scare you that much. I said with nerves raw from the night ahead while putting my phone on my bedside table. Is it true what it says on the internet? I asked before even letting her answer, that the victims were found dead with horrible expressions on their faces. She pursed her lips and looked up in front of her. Look, the truth is nobody knows what happened. There have been some strange things going on in the hospital lately. These strange deaths are one of them. She looked me in the eye. But that's why I'm here, to make sure nothing happens to you and the other patients. Like you said, none of the nurses were targeted, so it's safe to assume that anything. I interrupted her. Anyway, now that rounds are being made, there's little chance of it happening again. The person responsible, if they exist, has probably fled somewhere else by now. She finally left, assuring me that she'd be back every hour of the night. I took a deep breath to relax, took my medication for the night, and crawled under the comforter of my bed to try to sleep. After a while, more because of my still fragile state than anything else, I finally managed to fall asleep. I opened my eyes slowly. It was still dark outside. The room was plunged into darkness, lit only by the light from the corridor that passed through the gaps in my bedroom door. I sat up a little in bed, wondering what had woken me up. Suddenly, I heard a whisper in the corner of the room. Instinctively, I pulled my blanket up in front of my chin. I stared at the corner. It was too dark to see, and that corner appeared even darker than the rest of the room, a darkness that wasn't natural. There was no way I was going to take a closer look at where the noise was coming from, like all the idiots who get killed in horror movies. I quickly got out of bed and tiptoed to the door to get out and fetch someone. All the while, I kept staring at the corner of the room, watching for the slightest noise, the slightest movement. And in the total silence of the night, I heard it, a whisper that sounded to me like a scream in the silence. You are next. I screamed at the top of my lungs and ran for the door. Just before I opened it, I saw that Eva was standing right in front of it, looking at me through the small window. She widened her eyes in surprise at my scream and came in, turning on the bedroom light. "What's going on? Are you okay?" she asked me worriedly. I told her everything under the safety of a bright ceiling light in the hospital cafeteria. She seemed very disturbed by what I had told her. Had other victims said exactly the same thing before they died? If so, she wouldn't tell me. She gave me a few vague words of comfort, telling me that I must have imagined that shadow, and the words that followed because of my state of exhaustion and everything I'd read on the internet that evening, the fact that I was severely dehydrated on top of that, effectively made me doubt my own memories. Once we'd finished our chat, I realized that patients were starting to enter the cafeteria for breakfast. It was early, 5 a.m., but I couldn't see myself going back to bed for even a few hours until the sun was fully up. I forced myself to swallow something, and around 8 a.m. I returned to my room accompanied by a doctor who wondered what I was doing there while sick. The day passed quickly. My parents had come to visit, I'd taken my medication, and already dawn was beginning to break in the sky. I chatted to Eva again over dinner, and as she left the room with a comforting smile on her lips, I'd almost convinced myself that I'd imagined what had happened the night before. I drank a large glass of water with my medication and went to sleep for the second night. As I slept soundly, I felt the presence of two hands on my legs. The next thing I knew, one was moving up my thigh, then the other hand on the other. I opened my eyes and turned around. There was nothing in front of me but darkness. And yet when I looked down, I saw the trace of two huge hands on me, whose only proof of their existence was the mark they left as they pressed into the blanket and the pressure they exerted on me. I screamed like a madman. Both hands went to my chest. That was it. They were going to come up to my neck and strangle me or go through my torso and crush my heart in their palm. Or worse, hold it firmly but without forcing it so that my life would gradually come to an end. Just as I was contemplating all the possible horrors, I felt movement to my right and saw the light come on. Eva stood there, sweating, looking around the room. You saw it?" I asked, trembling. Yes, I saw it. She looked as confused as I was, as if the thing that had tried to kill me had jumped in her face before disappearing. Suddenly, my head began to spin, my vision blurred, my heart began to beat irregularly in my chest. Before I fainted, I thought I heard something coming from outside, a barely audible whisper that seemed to say, "Stay awake." Then I fainted. I woke up in the afternoon in my room. I could hardly think straight. Everything around me was a blur. A doctor was talking to my mother, who looked pale with worry. When I opened my eyes, she came to me and said, "Don't worry, darling, everything will be fine. Just sleep and rest." I barely had time to mumble something before a nurse injected something into a tube beside me. It seemed to be Eva. She was smiling at me as usual, but I sensed something had changed in her expression. Before I could think of anything, I fell back asleep. I felt numb all over, as if I were being held in a second state by invisible straps. "Wake up," a voice whispered to me. But I couldn't do anything. I felt so weak. "Wake up," it insisted. I could feel a presence, the presence of something that wasn't supposed to make contact with the world of the living, and yet it was there. Another presence, another voice, "Wake up." Then another and another, 6, 7 voices. They were all shouting the same thing, "Wake up." I opened my eyes suddenly, taking a deep breath, and before me stood a demon, but not the one I was expecting. Eva. She was standing right above me, knees up on my bed, holding a syringe filled with some unknown liquid with a horrible expression of ecstasy on her usually sweet face, and holding my jaw on one side to reveal my neck. Who was this person? Had she been possessed by the thing that had haunted me the last 2 nights? No. I could see it in her eyes. For the first time, I could see her true face, the face of a maniacal killer. I still felt weak, as if I could barely lift my arms, and she seemed so strong above me. This time it was really going to be the end. She was supposed to be making the rounds to keep me safe after all. No one was going to come and save me. Just as she was about to stick her needle in my neck, she suddenly froze, looking over my shoulder. All traces of ecstasy had vanished and been replaced by dreadful fear. Then, the next instant, anger. "This time, you won't be able to stop me," she screamed before pulling herself together. This delay had given me enough time to come to my senses and think of a way out. Suddenly, I turned my whole body in my bed and threw her to the floor with me. I felt like I was wrestling with a banshee. She seemed to be going out of her mind, screaming at the top of her lungs that she was going to kill me, while I used all my energy to restrain her arm that was holding the needle. After a while, probably less than 10 seconds, that felt like 10 minutes, a doctor stormed into my room with a nurse and managed to subdue Eva. I crawled to a wall to rest my back on, fully awake and realizing how incredibly lucky I was to still be alive. An hour later, Eva was taken away by the police. Considering the facts and her far more unstable psychological state than she had appeared, it wasn't long before they managed to get her to confess to the murders. Eva was a serial killer who used her position of trust as a nurse to kill patients. She used an undetectable product that was the direct cause of cardiac arrest. My state of health had worsened as a result of all these events, and I ended up staying in hospital for another week. Nothing strange happened during my stay. Everything was back to normal. Just as I was gathering my things on the last day before leaving my room, I thought I heard whispers coming from somewhere. I turned around in surprise and just said what came to me instinctively at the time. "Thank you." I found my little sister's diary. I wish I hadn't. My little sister, Emily, always loved keeping a diary. She had stacks of them, pastel covers with little locks, each one filled with messy handwriting and stickers. She used to guard them fiercely, threatening to tell on me if I so much as looked at them. But Emily passed away 3 months ago. She was only 11, a freak accident at the lake. She fell in, hit her head on a rock, and drowned before anyone could get to her. The funeral was unbearable, and afterward, I couldn't bring myself to touch her things. Her room remained untouched, like a shrine to the girl she used to be. But last week, Mom asked me to start sorting through her belongings. I found her latest diary in the bottom drawer of her desk. It was unlocked. I thought reading it might bring me some closure. I thought it would help me feel close to her again. I was wrong. The first few entries were normal. The day we had pizza for dinner, I took 2 slices before Joey could get them all. He got mad, but I don't care. That made me smile. Emily always loved teasing me. The next few pages were full of harmless ramblings, complaints about school, doodles of flowers and stars, lists of her favorite songs. But then, about halfway through, the tone started to change. I saw the man again today. He was standing in the backyard, watching me through the window. I told Mom, but she said I was imagining things. He's always there, though. I can feel him. The man? I paused, flipping back through the earlier entries. No mention of him before. Maybe it was just Emily's overactive imagination. She'd always been a little jumpy, a little too eager to believe in monsters under the bed. I kept reading. The man came closer last night. He tapped on my window. He didn't say anything, just smiled at me. His teeth are so big. I wanted to scream, but I was too scared. I felt a chill run down my spine. Emily's handwriting got messier with each entry, her words more frantic. He comes inside now. He stands at the foot of my bed while I pretend to sleep. He whispers my name. He says he's waiting. Waiting for what? I flip to the last few pages, my heart pounding. Joey doesn't see him. No one does. He told me not to tell. He said they wouldn't believe me. He said I belong to him now. I stopped reading. My hands were shaking. This had to be some kind of prank, a made-up story Emily wrote to scare me. But the way she described it, the fear in her words, it felt real. Too real. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the diary. I couldn't shake the image of Emily lying in bed, too terrified to scream, while some stranger stood over her. I barely slept. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed about her. She was standing at the edge of the lake, staring at me with wide, unblinking eyes. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. When I woke up, I was drenched in sweat, and there was mud on my shoes. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe I'd gone outside to clear my head and didn't remember. But the next day, I found a page from Emily's diary lying on my desk. I hadn't brought the diary upstairs. The page wasn't one I'd read before. He says Joey will come next. He says Joey will join me soon. My blood turned to ice. That night, I locked my bedroom door. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, that grief was playing tricks on me. But as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I heard it. A tap, tap, tap on my window. I didn't want to look. I couldn't, but something made me turn my head. He was there. A man, tall and thin, his face pale and stretched like wax. He smiled at me, baring rows of jagged teeth, and pressed a single finger to his lips. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. When I woke up, it was morning. The window was locked. No sign of anyone outside. I almost convinced myself it was a dream until I went downstairs and found another page from Emily's diary on the kitchen table. He says it's time. He says Joey belongs to him now. Haven't slept since. I haven't left the house. I keep hearing taps at the windows, whispers in the dark. Last night, I found muddy footprints leading from the lake to my bedroom door. I think I understand now. Emily didn't fall. She didn't hit her head. He took her. And now he's coming for me. My colleagues and I found a mysterious shipping container. We should have never opened it. Greetings to you all. My name is Sven. I just really need to speak to someone to let it out and perhaps ease my conscience before it is too late. I have made the biggest mistake of my life. I work as a security guard officer in a small port in Europe, and I have been in the job for almost a decade now without any major incident. I did not know that it would change 9 days ago in one of the worst manners. That night, at around 7 a.m. during my last patrol, I heard faint tapping sounds coming from the container yard. I paid attention while walking in the yard, shining my flashlight on containers as a reaction to the tapping that grew louder as I approached the impending doom. Under 6 minutes, I finally located the container and could clearly hear someone tapping from inside it. Those containers were emptied earlier in the day, I remembered, baffled by the fact that someone, instead of at least something, had been mistakenly forgotten inside. The moment I tapped on the container to make my presence known, the person trapped in the storage box also tapped from inside it, on the same spot and at the same time, almost as if that person knew what I would do. "Who's there? Who's inside?" I asked, certain that it could just be a stevedore trapped inside, following a mistake, or even a prank, and I wanted to play a little bit with the person. I was answered with silence. With my radio, I contacted my colleague Lana to explain the situation to her, and we even laughed a little bit about that, persuaded that it was either a mistake or a prank. However, the seriousness of the situation resurfaced when I gave the container number to Lana, and she could not find it in any record whatsoever. "Please, please help me open the door," I heard a faint male voice coming from inside. For a few seconds, I was frozen in place, shocked and unable to answer because he really sounded like me. "Sir, you all right?" I asked after regaining my composure. "I am not all right. Please help me open the door." The man answered. "How did you end up in there?" I asked with a smile, still willing to joke with him about it before I help him. "Please help me open the door," he pleaded again, with the same tone like some kind of recording prepared for the situation. "Really? It was true? I thought you were pulling a prank," Goran, another security officer, said while arriving on the scene. "Please help me open the door," the man said. "What? Kinda sounds like you, bro," Goran noticed. "Who's that?" he added. "That is me," the man spoke. "You hurt?" I asked, thinking that it was enough and we had to let him out. "I am hurt. I am bleeding. I am feeling cold. Please help me. Open the door," the man said. I approached, ready to help, but Goran stopped me on my tracks, squinting his eyes as if he just noticed something wrong. I could agree that someone speaking like that and using full words instead of contractions seemed strange. However, that man could just be disoriented and especially needed help. "How did you end up in there?" Goran questioned. Once again, no answer. "Who are you?" he added. "I am me," the man spoke. "You who? What's your name?" Goran asked. No answer. "You work here?" I asked. "No, the sun will soon rise. Please help me. Open the door." "The sun? How do you know that?" Goran asked, but the man stayed silent. "Maybe he got a watch," I suggested. "It's all dark in there," Goran pointed out. "An electronic one?" I again suggested, trying to help the man's case. "How many are you in there?" I added. "Me," the man spoke. "Where are you coming from?" Goran randomly asked. "From far away. The sun will soon rise. Please let me out. Please help me. Open the door," the man said. "Where exactly?" I questioned. "Where there is no sun. Please, the sun will soon rise. Please help me open the door," the man answered. After a lot of arguing with Goran and pleading from the man, other security guards and other colleagues from different departments also arrived on the scene, prompting the reluctant Goran to finally succumb to pressure and let me open the door to rescue the man. I began the process to open the storage steel box while Goran and the others stood behind me, guns and flashlights ready to prevent any kind of foul play. I pulled the right side open and expected the man to appear, but he did not move. I pulled the left side open and unveiled the horror that awaited for us. There was nobody and nothing in the container except for a wooden mannequin covered with strange symbols carved on it. That thing had clearly its place in a mystic temple or a shrine instead of a steel box. The walls of the container were also covered with bizarre drawings and symbols. "I told you not to open that door." A now trembling Goran spoke. At that instant, the mannequin tilted its head to the left, making cracking sounds, and a smile mysteriously carved itself on its face. Before the mannequin turned into dust from its head to its feet, and the dust escaped from the container, we looked at the whole phenomenon, frightened, paralyzed, powerless, and also mentally broken at the realization that we might have released a calamity into the city and the world, something we do not even know the nature or the capacity of. The day after, Goran was found mysteriously dead in his living room. No wound, no fight, no sickness, no nothing. He was just dead. An expression of pure fright stuck on his face. That entity, in addition to being terrifying, was also vengeful. Since I have been checking the news relentlessly, for I am sure to bear a part of responsibility for any tragedy that thing may cause, be it accident, disease, or even death. That thing will come for us, but if that container was meant to imprison it, then it was certainly dangerous for the whole world too. Therefore, whatever happens to you, please accept these sincere apologies for our mistake. I am really sorry. I'm a nurse. Last night, I saw something strange on the ER's security camera. I was sitting at the nurse's station reading trashy tabloids and drinking coffee when Olga, the other nurse on duty, poked my arm. The little girl escaped, she said, with a giggle. What? She pointed to the security camera feed. Little Madeline was standing in the hallway, her image grainy and pixelated. We'd admitted Madeline at 8:23 p.m. A little girl no more than 6, her face covered in blood. She'd taken a nasty fall down the stairs. Dr. Thompson was worried she might develop a subdural hematoma, so we were keeping her for overnight. No, she shouldn't be up. I paused, leaning towards the monitor. And where'd she get those clothes? She wasn't wearing the hospital gown we'd put her to bed in. No, she was wearing a black dress, white stockings, and shiny black shoes, as if she were all dressed up for church or a funeral. And she kept whipping her head back and forth as if expecting someone to come down the hallway. Well, are you going to go get her or not? Olga said, looking up from her phone. Yeah, I'll get her. I pushed the chair out, leapt up, and speed walked down the hallway. Madeline, I called as I rounded the corner. Metal? My breath caught in my throat. There was no one there. I walked up to her room. Madeline, I called, poking my head in. She was sleeping peacefully in bed, in her hospital gown, with her IV still attached. Weird, I walked back to the nurse's station. I couldn't help feeling a bit unsettled. I know kids sometimes do freaky shit, but there's no way a 6-year-old could reattach an IV. I plopped back down at the nurse's station. Olga raised her eyebrows at me. You found her? Yeah, she's sleeping in her room. I leaned towards her and lowered my voice. This is going to sound really weird, but I don't think she ever got out of bed. Ooh, spooky, she said with a grin. Maybe she's possessed by that slime thing you wouldn't shut up about last week. Back to texting. I narrowed my eyes at her. That's not something to joke about. Oh, really? What are you going to do, murder me? She held up her hands in front of her. I'm so scared. I rolled my eyes and turned back to reading about the half-mermaid that apparently washed up on the shores of Lake Erie. I can't believe people actually believe this stuff, I thought. It was 3:40 a.m. when it happened again. I happened to look up at the hallway and the security monitor caught my eye. Madeline was standing just outside her door, in her dress and stockings. Except she looked scared this time. Look, it's Madeline again, I said, poking Olga. As I said it, one of the lights flickered out at the far end of the hallway. The video feed grew darker. Olga looked up from her texting. Who was she even texting after 3 a.m.? And followed my gaze. Oh, it's the little demon girl again. Ha ha. I narrowed my eyes at her. If you think all of this is so funny, you go check on her. Her eyes widened a bit. Okay. She slowly got up, taking as long as humanly possible. Then she disappeared down the hallway. I turned back to the video feed. Another light had gone out at the end of the hall. The video was darker and grainier now, but I could still make out Madeline's little form standing in front of the room. barely more than a silhouette. Another light went out, then another and another. The hallway was quickly engulfed in darkness until the only light on was the one above Madeline's door. Well, crap, I muttered to myself. We're going to need an electrician. I drank the last dregs of my iced coffee. When I put the cup down, I saw it. My blood ran cold. It was a shadow, a grainy, pixelated silhouette roiling and shifting in the darkness. At first, I thought it was Olga, coming from the other end of the hall. It wasn't. It was too tall, stretching from the ceiling to the floor. Too thin. No offense, Olga. I leaned into the monitor. What the hell? The shadow got darker, larger. It slowly bled out of the darkness and into the light of the hall, right next to Madeline. It was so dark and subtle, I thought it might be just some trick of the camera, some error of the low light. But Madeline saw it too, because she was backing away, stretching her arms over the open hospital room door, shaking her head violently. The shadow advanced. My eyes snapped away from the security system to the nurse's console. No. Madeline's vitals were plummeting, her heart rate, blood pressure. I shot up and sprinted down the hallway. Olga had just gotten there, her hand on the doorknob. Half the hallway was dark, just like in the feed, but no tall shadow like I'd seen. No Madeline standing in the hallway. Call Dr. Thompson, I screamed. She's in trouble. I flew past her into the room. Madeline lay still and motionless on the bed. Her heart had stopped. I ran over, started CPR. Come on, I screamed internally. Please don't take her from us, please. Her heartbeat returned just as Dr. Thompson rushed in. I fell against the wall and began to sob. We kept Madeline in the hospital for a few more days, but I don't think we needed to. She seemed to recover quickly. As I checked her vitals to release her, I'd nearly forgotten all about the shadow. How are you feeling? I asked her as I took her blood pressure. Great, Madeline said. She turned to her parents. She saved me. Ah, it was nothing, she glanced at me. Not you, she said condescendingly. Maggie. Maggie? I furrowed my eyebrows at her. Ungrateful little kid. Who's Maggie? Madeline's mother uneasily stared at the floor. Her father wrapped an arm around her and coughed strangely. Okay then, you're all set, I said, ripping off the blood pressure cuff. Yay, she squealed. She grabbed her mom's hand and the two of them walked into the hallway, but the father stayed behind. Thank you so much for everything, he said with a smile. As I understand it, you saved Madeline's life. No, that was Maggie, I said, rolling my eyes. He coughed again, strangely. The curiosity bit into me. Completely overstepping my bounds as a nurse, I asked, who's Maggie, her imaginary friend? He sighed heavily. Sort of. When my wife was pregnant with Madeline, she was actually pregnant with twins. My heart stopped. Identical twins, but one of them passed away in the womb, he continued. We told Madeline since we don't believe in keeping secrets, but it appears we made a mistake. Little Madeline has an overactive imagination, always talks about Maggie as if she's actually still with us. He coughed again, strangely, and I realized it was to stop an impending sob. He reached out to shake my hand. Thank you so much again. He turned and followed his family down the hallway, but all I could think about was the little girl who looked exactly like Madeline, standing outside her door, protecting her. My housemate is dead, but everyone is pretending she's not. Has anyone ever been in a situation like this before? Anyway, it all started last week. I live with 4 roommates, Jess, Lily, Dane, and Miguel. Lily is the one who I'm pretty sure is dead, even though my housemates all say she's pretending. And at first, I did think she was pretending. It's an old trick of hers. She's super introverted. And sometimes, if she's overwhelmed or just doesn't want to talk, she'll pretend to be asleep. We call it her playing possum. But now she's been playing possum for nearly a week. Her eyes are open, her face is this grayish white and has been turning kind of purplish. Her body is bloating. And I saw a fly land on her eyeball, and I think it laid eggs there. She hasn't changed out of her panda onesie since she started playing possum last Monday. She smells like a corpse smells, like rotting meat. And that panda onesie, that panda suit, is so gross. I'm pretty sure she died in it last Monday. and everyone is just in some kind of denial. But does that even make sense? I mean, how is it three other people are all saying she's alive and that I'm delusional? Is it just some bizarre social experiment? I keep waiting for some reality TV host to pop out from behind the potted plant and a hidden audience to start laughing or clapping. I feel like I'm coming unglued from reality. I'm sitting on the sofa as I write this, by the way, sitting here looking across the TV room at Lily, who is propped up in the same chair she died in, eyes wide open, flesh bloated and lips purplish and skin just, I think she's going to start leaking into that chair. But let me rewind us to last Sunday. Sunday's when we hit the old lady's cat. It wasn't on purpose. We had all had a bit too much to drink, and I was driving, and Dane was in the passenger seat, and Jess and Miguel and Lily were in the back, and the cat, it just friggin' raced out into the road, solid black, and then there was a thump. My stomach flipped. And then this old woman came out of her house and saw her cat had been hit and screamed and screamed. Lily told her she should have kept her cat inside, not let it wander near a busy road. Anyway, long story short, I think that lady was a witch and hexed us for killing her cat. More specifically, I think she hexed Lily. I mean, I don't think, I know, because the woman said some words in a strange language and we all called her crazy and drove home. So that was Sunday night. Come Monday, when I came out for breakfast, I was up early as usual. The only other person out in her chair in the living room was Lily, bundled up in her panda onesie. I said good morning, but she had a 1,000-yard stare. I figured she just wanted to be left alone and didn't think anything more of it until I got home from work in the afternoon. Lily was still in the chair, same exact pose, still in her panda onesie. I asked if she was all right. Miguel was playing a video game and he answered for her, said Lily was sick and had stayed home from classes. I hope you feel better, I told Lily. She didn't respond. Lily, I said. She didn't respond. Hey, Lily, I said that I hope. Chill, just leave her alone, snapped Miguel, who seemed annoyed because I was interrupting his game. I thought it was weird, but I let it go because he was acting so normal. But at dinner, she was still in her chair in the same pose and hadn't moved. I tried talking to Jez, who told me she'll be fine, it's just a cold. This behavior went on for days, and just anytime I tried to ask any of my roommates if Lily was okay, they would act like I was the crazy one. I tried to point out she hadn't changed out of her onesie and was told to quit being an asshole. She's sick, let her be. At one point, I was staring at her from the sofa, trying to catch her blinking, and Jez yelled at me and told me to stop being such a creep that I was weirding Lily out. They even put up a big cushion in front of her to block her from having to see me, which she clearly couldn't because she was by this point 3 days dead. I assumed once the rotting set in that they would notice, but they just pretended all the harder. And in fact, they even started staging her body. Like, I know it sounds really weird. I don't know why they did it or if it's some sick social experiment or what, but they moved her. I found her at the table one morning. She was slumped backwards over her chair, sightless eyes, staring up at the ceiling. Everyone talked to her like she was alive. By this point, she also stank. I mean, to the point I even noticed Miguel and Dane kind of surreptitiously keeping their distance and breathing through their mouths, not their noses, around her. I tried to talk about this to them later, but Miguel just wrinkled his nose at me and said, yeah, I know it's gross, but she's super depressed. Jess says she's never seen Lily this bad before. She's mad upset about that cat. Just let her be. We gotta let her work through this. She'll come out of it. Until then, things like showering and getting out of bed are really hard for her. I almost told him, yes, those things would be hard for a dead person to do, but I didn't. I honestly, I didn't know how to respond. I finally managed to say, dude, I think she's rotting in that panda suit. He chuckled and shook his head and said, come on, don't be an asshole. I finally did what I should have done from the beginning and called the police. I said I wanted a wellness check on Lily. My roommates tried to send them away, but I came downstairs and insisted and pointed to the corpse in the panda costume in the chair by the television. That chair was really gross by now. And the cops went over to examine her, and I really believed, really and truly, that we were all about to be arrested for having a dead girl rotting in our living room, congealing into that chair. But they pretended she was alive, the same as my roommates kept doing. She never spoke a word in answer to them, never moved. Leader just took me aside and told me my actions were uncalled for and that all I did was make things worse for Lily. So now I'm not sure what to do. Update. It's been several more days since I wrote the above stuff, and as you can imagine, her body became severely decomposed. Also, I confronted my roommates. We got into a huge fight. I told them that clearly the witch's hex had done something to Lily, that it was blinding them, and we were all living with a dead girl. They looked shaken after I pointed out the smell. The way Lily wasn't eating was literally rotting. They told me they thought I was seeing things, but the entire house reeked of death. None of us could stand it. We could all smell it. I heard Miguel and Dane whisper about the smell later, but they clamped up at a death glare from Jess. So I finally decided to take action. Last night, I bundled up the corpse in the panda suit and drove it out to the woods. There's these high bluffs out there. I tossed the corpse down the rocks. The animals out there will pick it to pieces, if it isn't already too rotted for them to eat. I came back home and also cleaned up around the house and put that disgusting chair out on the curb and finally went to bed. In the morning, I woke up to find Jez having a panic attack. She demanded to know where Lily was. I told her Lily left, and Jez accused me of lying. Miguel seemed relieved, though. While Jez went out in her car to go searching for Lily, Miguel told me he could finally breathe again and that it really had smelled bad in here, and someone needed to do something. He said he hoped Lily got the help she needed, but that this wasn't the right place for her and she probably needed inpatient treatment. I refrained from telling him that I thought it was way too late for a hospital. Anyway, her body being gone should be a good thing, except I think the hex is now hitting the rest of us because Dane, he's always a late sleeper. He didn't wake up through Jess's freak out or my conversation with Miguel, but now it's afternoon and I just came out and found him sitting next to Miguel on the sofa playing video games, only he's not actually playing. His eyes stare straight ahead of him. His hands don't move. There's a first-person shooter on the screen, and Miguel keeps telling Dane he needs to step up his game, but Dane is literally doing nothing, seeing nothing. I think he's like Lily was last Monday. Like the hex hit him, and now he's dead, but nobody can see it. I don't know if I should wait for his body to rot or if I should just take him out to the bluffs sooner. If this plays out the same way, Miguel won't stop pretending Dane is just fine. Jess will come home and also believe that he's still alive. Even the police will believe it. Why am I the one the hex didn't fit? Why am I the only one who can see that they're dead?